Okay. The interviewer to this film, one David Sheen, inquired as to whether or not I was holding back on information intentionally, avoiding subjects, or maybe trying to be PC and not trash the people I live with in front of him, or something by talking about what kind of dynamics can be hard here. I think one of the things that I have noticed that I like about IDA is that I feel like people can often be really honest about that we have fucked up dynamics and problems to deal with, and that it's certainly not a utopia, nor do we want it to be, nor do we pretend. We try not to pretend we're more fabulous than we are, and acknowledge our human frailties and stuff. It's important, I think, I've been in a bunch of different community environments and lived in housing co-ops and stuff, and I read the Intentional Communities book, and I'm entertained by it because people put out these glowing descriptions of their great, perfect home and everything, and kind of half of it is bullshit when you're reading it. We know. I know that there's so many problems at these places, and it's not like everyone has to publish their bullshit either, but it is a problem when people aren't honest and people pretend they're more fabulous than they are, and the problem with that is that then when the shit hits the fan, when the shit hits the fan in communities that aren't being honest about that they have problems, it exacerbates the problems, like the lack of honesty. If you put so much time into being, we're so fabulous, we're so great, we do this, you should live here, then it's a lot harder to acknowledge and deal with things. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen at IDA. It sure as hell does. And sometimes I'm sure I'm part of that dynamic and problem. But I like living at a place where I think when we're doing well, we acknowledge that there's a lot of problems, and maybe then avoid the people that we're having problems with, which doesn't solve shit. One of the benefits of living at IDA is when things are going well, it's a really easy place for people to be themselves. It's a really easy place to see people grow and flourish in an environment that's not as oppressive, at least as far as sexuality and gender, as most of this fucked up country is. So yeah, that's a benefit. I think it's amazing to be able to breathe relatively clean air and drink really amazing spring water. I go to Nashville for things, and when I'm in Nashville, I don't usually notice I don't necessarily notice when I go to Nashville that the air is feels bad. Sometimes I do, but every single time I come home from an outing to a place like Nashville, when we get out of the car door, get out of a car door. Every time I come back from a place like Nashville, when I get out of the car, the first thing I notice is the air, and notice that my chest has tightened up because of breathing really disgusting air. And I don't think our air out here is necessarily that great. I'm sure there's some acid rain and pollution, since most of it's invisible, but I know that my chest can open up when I'm breathing relatively fresh country air, and so that's a benefit. And we eat a lot of vegetables and berries out of our gardens, which I feel really fortunate for. Most people in this country don't have access to fresh food. Most rural people don't have as good access to a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables as people in cities, because the supply, the whole routes of supply direct more of the better food to places like New York or Atlanta, the bigger cities. rural people are generally screwed as far as getting a lot of fruits and vegetables, fresh stuff, and in the same way that a lot of people in parts of cities that aren't rich are affected. So, but we're lucky because we have access to good land and water that we can grow good food. Another benefit of living at IDA is, well, I've lived in some cities that are like kind of gay mecca cities or something. I've lived in San Francisco, I lived in Amsterdam, I lived in Copenhagen, and in all of those places, sometimes I feel really lonely in the big gay meccas. Like everyone seems so busy. Like I'll go to a place in San Francisco where I must know a ton of people, and then it seems like so much work to actually get together with people and do things. And if you, I'm sure a lot of people can identify with the experience of you go to visit a place, and if you don't call all your friends when you're there, they're going to be pissed. But if you do call them to get together, it's such a hassle to work it out to get together because they have so much going on, or they don't have so much going on, but they're recovering from having had so much going on. And one thing that's kind of cool about living at IDA that doesn't show up on the benefit statement is that a lot of people travel through this area to IDA, to Short Mountain, to other friends in the area, and so it's really easy to have an active social life, even living in the middle of the woods. Like, it's much easier for me to have a lot of queer friends and straight friends in some cases, like, that I'm excited about, just living out in the woods, just meeting all the different people that pass through. I think IDA is so unique in terms of, like, its gender queer persona that it has in the world, and that doesn't mean everyone who lives here or comes here calls themselves gender queer, but I think there's some kind of weird gender blending going on here that's relatively unique in the world, and or at least in the United States. And this gender blending is probably like the most important factor in a lot of ways of what our community is about, more so than the gardens or the sunset time. I think IDA means a lot to a lot of freaky queer people, and even a lot of freaky non-queer people, though a lot of times freaky non-queer people are queerer than queer people. But anyway, I think IDA means a lot to people because it's nice for people to have a vision, whether it's true or not, but it's nice for people to have a vision of something that seems like the kind of world maybe we want to be moving towards creating. I say maybe true or not because I mean, IDA can be dysfunctional like any other family. Oh, now you're getting somewhere. IDA can be dysfunctional like any other group of people, and for most of its history, IDA's a pretty white group, which is a big fucking problem. Mm-hmm. And like, if I had my way, we'd offer like 50 acres to anyone who wants it that's not white to develop something on this land or something. I mean, land ownership and distribution patterns in this country are so beyond racist and fucked up. But that's not the question you asked me. The question was about what it means to freaks, and I think IDA means a lot to freaks. I talk to friends who I think are doing some of the most amazing work in the world that I am envious of, like the political struggles they engage in, and the cultural work they're doing, and the organizing they're doing, whether it's in a union or immigrant rights organizing, and I'm just like totally impressed and tell them how much I admire them. And a lot of times the answer I get from friends who are doing really amazing, hard political struggle work is that they're really happy places like IDA exist because we're doing the work. They think of helping to create what it is they're hoping to find for more people after people have some progress through their struggles. So I think IDA means a lot to a lot of freaky people. And it means a lot to me that it means a lot to a lot of freaky people, because sometimes we put on this music festival once a year and we get hundreds of people here, and sometimes it's like annoying and a hassle and we don't get sleep and we're stressed out hosting that much, but it also fuels us to make it through the rest of the year till the next time, because long after people leave, you can sense they're part of our community, and it keeps us from feeling isolated. And